Hour 2 Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, up on TSN 2. Brian Hayes, Gord Miller, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. John Gibbons was very nice to you when you were calling games.
He was very gracious to me. I remember doing the first time I called a baseball game, I had this stack of notes I'd made. And then they give you a stack of notes. Like they drop a phone book on you at 4:30. And it's like every stat you can imagine. And I realized before the game that everything I had, I didn't need, and everything I needed, I didn't have.
Okay, in what capacity? Like, what would you have not had that you thought?
Well, I think...
Like, you just need, like, a stat per player. Is that what you're saying?
Less about stats and more about... And I think this is important, is that, you know, I watch a baseball game now, and sometimes you turn it on, and the screen looks like the Bloomberg...
There's a lot going on.
There's too many. It's all stats.
There's a lot going on.
Storytelling's still a big part of it.
Yeah.
And I think you still need background on the players. It's hard. 162 games, it's hard. But you need to tell stories about the players and get the audience interested in who these people are. And that's the formula of the World Junior. We take 23 players you've never heard of and tell you their stories and get you interested in them somehow. And so I didn't have enough of that. And I think also situationally I didn't have enough. You know, you need to know what this guy's batting average is, you know, with runners in scoring position the last 10 days.
Right.
Like what's he done the last 2 weeks?
And that type of detail is there in baseball.
It is.
But you got to go find it.
You got to go find it.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, and I think also just baseball is interesting to call because when there's one out, you can't really start into something because if there's a runner on base, it could be
change really quickly.
And the other thing that's funny is the next pitch is probably nothing, but it might be everything.
Yeah, that's right.
So like I remember I did a game where there was a home run in like the first inning, and I called it okay, but not great. One of the Blue Jay broadcasters had told me, watch out, because the Jays had the electric outfield signs back then, the scores on them. And they said it'll affect your depth perception. Sometimes you'll lose a ball. So this ball was well hit. It seemed obvious to me it was a home run, but I waited. I think it bounced twice in the seats before I actually called it a home run. I was being so patient.
Yeah.
That was the only run of the game.
See, that's tough because it can be very deceiving. When you sit in the stands, like if you're sitting behind home plate and the home broadcasters or the broadcast crews are generally right behind home plate. Yep. They're up on the 200 level. You get someone that hits one, like it cracks off the bat. You think that's gone, no doubt.
Yeah.
And it may not even hit the warning track.
If the roof is open, different deal, because the wind kind of swirls under the roof.
Well, that's another thing. If you get like windy parks and wind coming in from the left field or right field, that can affect things.
The official score.
You don't want to miss the call.
One of the guys who was an official scorer at the Jays game, Larry Milson. Remember him? He used to work for the Globe and Mail. He was one of the guys that was an official scorer. And he told me a story about in the first inning, there was a ball hit to right field. Dave Stieb was pitching. And the outfielder maybe should have got it. Wasn't sure. He called it a hit. The only hit Steve gave up.
Should have been an error. Is that what you're suggesting?
Probably. If it's an error.
No hitter's still intact.
Yeah.
Not good. Did Dave have comments for him?
So some guys do apparently lobby the official scorers.
As you should, absolutely.
No, apparently that's bad form. But
why would that be bad form? Maybe in the moment it's bad form to think, hey, that just happened and that screwed up my no-hitter. But if you actually pitch out the rest of the frames and you end up with a no-hitter, I think retroactively you snap on people.
Gibby had a funny line.
I'd be happy to do that.
I was doing a series in Chicago one time, and the White Sox were losing badly to the Jays late, and a Blue Jay got to first base and then took second. I said, easy stolen base for so-and-so. Not a stolen base. Defensive indifference.
Right.
I missed that.
Got to figure that out.
So the next day at batting practice, Gibby walked by me and said, I guess I forgot to mention the whole defensive indifference part, huh? So this is before social media, but there were chat rooms. So there's a thing called the batter's box, which was like a Blue Jays thing. I got slaughtered in that thing.
Yeah, people are harsh.
For missing defensive indifference.
People are harsh, man. You say the wrong thing at the wrong time. Sometimes like vernacular can bother people.
Yeah.
So in other words, if you were to say, instead of, hey, that's a great hit, it was, what a slap shot to left. Why would you ever say that? But if you were to use hockey terminology in the baseball world, it is frowned upon.
I did learn early on that saying hot shot hit foul.
Yeah, doesn't go well.
risk reward there.
Yeah.
Not
drop bunt and a beauty. Probably not going to go over well.
Not worth the.
No. You don't want to do that. But it was a cool weekend here in Toronto. It was a beautiful day on Saturday. The roof open, the Jose Bautista ceremony, level of excellence, which was certainly well-deserved. I think Jose handled it really well. His former teammates were out there, some former managers, including our next guest. You know him as the former manager of the Blue Jays, host of the Gibby Show. Here's one of our favorites. Joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline, here's John Gibbons. How you doing, John?
Hey, doing good, man. I see you got Gord on there with you.
Yeah, there's Gord, man. He's basically claiming you saved his career.
You did.
He didn't know what the hell he was doing.
Oh, man. I remember one of the first games I did was Baltimore against the Jays. And it was Gary Thorne was doing the game for Baltimore.
Right.
So he and I walked into Gibby's office and Gibby, what is this, a hockey game tonight?
Oh, both you guys in there. Well, I wish Gord had saved my career, for crying out loud.
Yeah, where were you, Gord? Why couldn't you help Gibby get over the top a couple more times? Hey, he needed you, man. At least hey, listen, it was great to see you out there. It was great to see you out there over the weekend. That looked like a really, really cool scene. You got a big ovation. I think it was borderline standing ovation for 45,000 people in there, John. How did that feel when you got called out on Saturday?
Hey, pretty damn good. You know what? The Blue Jays fans, whether they're here or across the country, have always been so good to me. I don't deserve all that, and my last game here in 2018, they really treated me well, and then of course I've been gone since then, but made me tear up a little bit, man. I got a little emotional, and but you know what? They treated me so good, and it was kind of a little bond that formed there at the end. I don't know why, but when the team started playing good, and I don't like to insult Canadians, but I feel like I'm one of them, so I'm sorry if I get you, but.
Yeah, we'll take it. No, I think a lot of Canadians would love to hear that, John, and I think it's a sign of probably your general disposition, how you would treat people up here, but as you know, you've been around the block for a long time. When you win, that goes a long way. And I think probably Jose Bautista would say the same thing. Like Bautista hit 54 home runs in 2010, 40-plus multiple times. Like at that point was well revered as a great, great player and a superstar in Toronto. But with what you guys did in 15 and 16, like that changed everything, didn't it, in terms of your perception and the way the fans probably treated you guys?
Oh, yeah. Winning's everything, and if you're in the, I'd always heard from my earlier days here that, if you guys are relevant at the end of, you're going into the final couple months, especially September, watch what happens in this country. And, but we never saw it. We were so bad. We were eliminated basically in June. But finally it happened. It's like, wow, this is what they were talking about, and we caught fire and the country caught fire. And it was like, but you're right. But, if you're always perceived differently when the team has some success. Now, we came up short. I thought we should have won it all in 15. That was the team to do it. 16 would have been a nice bonus. But even still, I think there was 22-year drought. So just the fact of getting in there did wonders for everybody. And that obviously helped me out, that's for sure.
When you think back on, Bautista, and Bryan mentioned a moment ago, he hit 54 home runs in 2010, but you did have peak Jose Bautista. What made him so good for you?
Gosh, you know what? He's obviously he has talent. He can whip that bat, but the guy just had an edge about him, right? He wasn't not necessarily well liked around baseball. Everybody kind of perceived him that it could be a whiner, that kind of thing, because he argued with the umpires and all that. And he's very emotional, wore it on his sleeve. If he's on your team, you love him, but I can see, he rubbed his opponents wrong. But he had that knack of doing something good at the right time, and he was one of those guys that wanted to, if the game's on the line, he's the guy that wanted that at bat, or if he wanted to make a big play in the field or something. Now everybody thinks, well, everybody's probably that way, but that's not the truth. Some guys just thrive in that moment, and I think that's what separated him, because he's not a huge, big guy. But it was just a good all-around baseball player, and he had that torque in his swing that he could unload on that thing pretty good.
Yeah, he could, man. And you mentioned like his perception around baseball, and one of the more famous moments was him and Odor and that history between obviously the Jays and Texas, and we know what happened in 2015 when Bautista crushed their souls in the seventh inning, and you guys end up beating them in 5 in the ALDS. Then it carries over to 16. You have that brawl. where were you when like all hell was breaking loose? Were you looking for Jeff Bannister? Were you looking for a tilt yourself, Gibby? Like what was going on then?
Actually, at that moment, I was drinking some beer in the clubhouse. I got chunked a few innings before.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. So what was that viewing experience like?
Well, you know what? So I was in Tim Leeper, our first base coach. He got thrown out too. So we're sitting back there, and it was, we played them like 7 times in a 10-day period, right? And everybody knew something was going to happen, but then it didn't happen right away. Or the first six games, everybody's going, okay, maybe they're not going to, for the bat flip, right? Mm-hmm. Showing them up, I guess. And then it goes down to like his last at bat. We weren't going to see him again. The team, it was really gutless, right? So we're sitting in there, and they finally go after him. And Jose, he told me earlier, we talked about it before the beginning of the year, before we played Texas that first time. So he said, you're probably going to get hit. And he goes, yeah, I'm fine. I'll go to first base, whatever, right? And so what happened, it set up just like it used to in the old days, right? When somebody would get drilled, the guys that would worry about it were the shortstop and the second baseman for the other team, because they knew that guy on first base was going to come after him. That was back when you could get after the middle infielder pretty good, and that was just part of the game. And so it played out really perfectly. It was a ground ball hit. And Jose, he went after him. He didn't really get him good, but you could tell he went in there pretty semi hard slide. Mm-hmm. And he got up, and then, when Odor threw the punch, I mean, that's so rare in baseball. Anybody actually throws a punch. It's like, what the heck? And he got him. He staggered him a little bit. He didn't go down. He didn't go down. You watched that fight the other day where Anderson went down. Jose took it, and then of course all hell broke loose. And so I'm in the clubhouse, and I didn't have my shoes on. I told Lee, let's go, man. So anyway, so I end up, they handed out the fines a few days later, right? I got fined like $4,000. Odor got fined like $4,500. I said, so I called the league and Torrey. I said, that guy almost got fined as much as the freaking guy threw. I didn't throw a punch, And so, but Torrey said, well, there's a rule in baseball. If you get ejected, you can't come back out on the field in a brawl. And I get that, but you mean for coaches and managers, don't you want them out there kind of breaking things up?
Right.
So anyway, Jimmy Leland was retired, then he went to work for me. He got it cut in half, so I guess I was half guilty. But no, hey, Bannister and I, once I got out there, there was some heated words between us. He's a big rah-rah guy, but the worst part about it, he didn't even get fined a lick, nothing, right?
No, of course not.
Yeah, but that's that kind of, when obviously then we went and played him in the end of that year and swept them in the playoffs. So we got the best of them, But yeah, Jose was a lightning rod. There's no doubt about it. But that there was no need for that after a bat flip. After 22 years of frustration, if you couldn't understand that, you got a problem. And nobody celebrated more than Texas Rangers. That's how ironic it is.
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly. They were big personalities over there too. It was two worlds colliding. I guess maybe some similarities on both sides. We're chatting with John Gibbons. And, you just mentioned the idea of guys getting hit and knowing it's coming. There was a situation on Saturday, 9th inning. Varsho was up, and he gets thrown inside. I think he was down on the count. I want to say it was 0-2 or 1-2. Maybe it was the 8th inning, actually. And instead of leaning into the pitch, this is a guy who's been struggling a lot, and taking the free pass, he dives out of the way. The next pitch, he ends up chopping out the first. See you later. I'm curious about, from a manager's standpoint, like, to be fair to Varsho, the guy in the mound was throwing like 96, 97. He's throwing smoke at him. But what is the understanding between manager and hitter in a situation like that, where you get a guy that's struggling at the plate and a guy that's down on the count in either a tie game or a close game? Like, do you expect him to take that pitch and take the free bag, or is it kind of understood why instincts might kick in and he'd jump out of the way?
Hey, you've been watching too much hockey, man. Them tough nut dudes, man.
They got to take that pitch, man. Come on, Gibby. Got to take that.
No, hey, you know what? It depends on who the guy is, man, because there's a lot of guys. I understand. I've been one of those guys. Especially if I'm struggling, you just take one for the team, man. We need a base runner, right?
Exactly.
But sometimes, depending on maybe where it is, your instincts kind of force you to bail or something like that. I don't know. But you're right, man. I see too many guys in the highlights eating those pucks, man. But those are real men, man. Not baseball players aren't real, man, like that. Not all of them. Anyway.
There you go. You're a Canadian now, Gibby, with that comment right there.
Here's the thing that's funny, and the game has changed even in the few years since you last managed, John. But I mean, it's faster. There's a pitch clock, all that stuff. But also, it seems like managers have to tap dance around star players a little more than they might have in the past. You were never afraid to get in a player's grill. There was some famous confrontation in the dugout you had with guys and everything else. Do you see that maybe managers have to be a little more gentle in their approach?
Well, you know what? Yeah, I guess some of them are, but there's no doubt, the players got control of everything, right? If they turn on you, you're done, you're doomed. But, the way I grew up and the way I understood athletics, and I was fair to everybody, and you know what? So I expect you to, if I'm going to take care of you, I expect you to take care of me, man. So, you know what? If I need you to do something, I expect something out of you, I expect you to do it, and I understand everybody gets heated and there's sometimes guys do stupid stuff and there's confrontation, all that. But I'll be damned if I'm going to back down, if I'm, because I think, and it's not a macho thing. I say, the manager's still the boss. He's calling the shots until they get rid of him, right? And sometimes, these guys are like wild horses. They need their ears pinned back every now and then, right? So, but because if you don't, if you let these guys run roughshod over you or push you around or whatever you want to describe it, man, you're done. You can absolutely forget it, And because in the end, somebody's got to be the boss. And the good ones, I think, get out of the way, let these guys play. But there's times you got to make decisions, tough decisions, and they're not always going to like it. But that's just the way it is.
With John Gibbons, I'm curious how much of that still applies once you get this deep into the season, John, where you're into mid-August here. We're officially into the stretch run. Once you get into September, you're really in high gear. Like, how much of a manager's role now is just kind of relying on the players knowing what they're supposed to do, activating a different level or a different gear if need be, and especially with where the Jays are at, where they're in a playoff spot, but Seattle's lurking, Boston's right behind them, and by no means is it a guarantee they make the playoffs. What do you think is kind of running through the mind of John Schneider right now when it comes to what kind of effect he can have over the final, 40 games or so?
You know what I always found out, because we went down to the wire in 16, just to get in. We had to win on the last day there in Boston to get the wild card, But, to even just get to that point, your guys know what they're doing, right? And sometimes you're just best getting out of the way, keep them relaxed, they're going to look for you, see if you're panicking or anything like that. But there's no time for motivational speeches, because everybody knows what's going on. Everybody knows what's at stake. But, they're still in a good position. Seattle's had a underachieving year, probably, I think anyway. Mm-hmm. But they've been on a nice little roll, and they closed the gap, but they couldn't get over that hump. And, sooner or later, the law of averages says they can't keep that up. It's just no way, especially, they haven't done it all year. So it's almost like when you get on those nice rolls like that, you got to overtake the team in front of you, give yourself a little room, or otherwise, it's all for nothing. And I say that because I've been a couple of years we had some great runs, but we were so far out of it that, you climb back in, but, you can't maintain it. Because you're not going to win 20 in a row, that kind of thing. So they're well aware of it, but they're in a good position. I don't think the Red Sox are for real, to tell you the truth. I don't think they have enough pitching. They got plenty of offense. I think the Blue Jays are going to win. Tampa's maybe in a little jam right now. The shortstop's under the gun. He's from the law. If he's out, who knows what that does to a team, right? They've had so many injuries. They could disappear. You never know. But yeah, I still got my money on the Blue Jays. They're definitely going to get in my opinion. It would be something crazy would happen if they didn't. And then they got a shot, because they got really good pitching, and you know what? They got a tremendous bullpen, with some depth. So they can there's many guys they can go to in the end here. And every team can't say that. And then when you get to the playoffs, the pitching is what wins it.
Mm-hmm. So, John, with that in mind, you talked about, sort of staying out of the player's way. But at what point, if a player, especially a star player, is struggling, how much rope do you give them? And at what point do you have to say to a guy, sorry, I'm taking you out tonight?
Oh, you mean, are you talking about like for a day off? Or?
Well, I'm talking about longer term. I'm saying that you're not producing. I know you make a lot of money. I know you're a star, but I've moved you down the order. Now I'm taking you out of the order.
Well, it depends on who your replacement is, because when you got 4 or 5 guys on the bench, maybe, and if you got a guy that's pretty damn good that you've been dying, you think he deserves it, you know, you can throw him in there. You know, if it's just if you don't have that guy, maybe just give this guy a day or two off. But in the end, it's all about winning. You know, you can't let when you get your star players, they start getting a little bit older. You know, it's tough handling those guys, but it's reality, and the name of the game is to win. So I never really was confronted with much of that when the team was good. You know, I had some like aging superstars like Frank Thomas and stuff. You know, but we weren't relevant anyway. And you know, we butted heads over some things, and you have to make some changes. But usually, when you're in that position, the team's in it. You know, everybody's playing good enough they're contributing some way. You know.
Well, John, before we let you go, I want to thank you. We were joking about it at the start of the show, but I've always wanted to thank you for how kind and generous you were with me as a hockey guy trying to do baseball, and I've always really appreciated it. So thank you.
Hey, Gord, I appreciate that. I don't It's good to help you out, man. I'm glad I did. I don't know what I could have helped you with, but hey, you've done pretty damn good for yourself, man. I don't think you needed my help or anybody else's.
Yeah, it's worked out pretty well for Gord. Pretty well.
Yes, it has.
And for Gibby.
And for Gibby, the Gibby Show where you can find.
That's right. I have no complaints. Bryan, you ain't doing too bad yourself, man.
I'm trying, buddy. I'm plugging along here, Gibby. You know that. Well, we always appreciate you finding time for us, and we'll do it again real soon. Thank you for this.
All right, man. Have a good one.
You got it. John Gibbons, former Blue Jays manager, host of the Gibby Show. Find him on Twitter. You can find him everywhere. Joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota. Check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. It's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com.
Remember the Frank Thomas thing? That was tough.
Well, that was
Thomas was at the end.
An end of the road of a Hall of Fame career. And, yeah, Frank was coming in. I think he was searching for numbers. Like, did he hit like 500 here or something? I thought there was some big, bold number he was chasing. It was 500? Yeah. And I think that kind of factored in. Like, there was an understanding that that's kind of what was a part of the program.
Well, he also thought, if I recall correctly, there was something about his contract, the number of innings that he would, if he hit a number of innings, his contract would automatically guarantee.
Probably bonuses involved, yeah.
Well, no, but would guarantee his contract for the next year. And he thought the Jays were deliberately holding his innings back so he wouldn't qualify for the automatic contract. That seems about.
Yeah, I don't recall that, but I'm not disputing it. Like, that was a big signing, though, because of who he was.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Frank Thomas, a great player.
But that's hard. You know, that's hard for a manager, a coach, a general manager to deal with. They become almost like museum pieces.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's almost like this, especially if he was your guy for a long time.
Well,
that's a tough one to say. You know, like,
yeah,
to have to tap the guy in the shoulder and say sorry. You know,
that'd be a good list maybe for us to put together. Maybe we can do that tomorrow. You're in here tomorrow.
I am.
Using probably Leafs, Jays, Raptors. Which like all-time great player who only came up for a season or two, or even less than that?
Brian Leetch.
I think of Brian Leetch. I think of Ron Francis.
Yeah.
Hakeem Olajuwon.
Yeah.
Obviously, you mentioned Thomas. You know, Roger Clemens, who was here for 2 years, won back-to-back Cy Youngs. You had Paul Molitor was here. Like, there's a number of guys you could look at where you're like, man, that was a great player. It was only here. Like Kawhi, although he's still playing.
Yeah.
But we could put together a pretty good list. Great players
Oakley.
who are barely. Yeah. I don't think Oak would be like.
He was here longer than.
He was here longer, and like he wasn't like elite. But anyway, because there have been a number of guys who have kind of come and gone in Toronto. And that's going to happen. If you're around for a long time, I'm sure every fan base can probably
the
reference their own players.
The sad thing about modern sports, I guess we want to call it that, and the Leafs especially, how few great Leafs have retired as Leafs.
Yeah, I don't recall the last time there would have, like, if you're suggesting basically played their whole career as a Maple Leaf, or even just came back and finished. Well,
but even came here and were here a long time. Like, how many guys have had a long run and then retired here?
I couldn't tell you the last one.
Like, who is it?
Yeah.
Like, Wendell came back, but he's only back for a short time.
Doug Gilmour technically came back for like a shift.
Yeah.
2 shifts, blew his knee out in Calgary. That was it. Never played again.
But I mean, you know, George Armstrong was like
that's early 70s.
Early
70s he retired after 20 seasons or something.
But for a long time, because of Ballard, the guys left.
Yep. Like Salming, where did Salming end up?
Detroit, Philly.
Finishing, yeah.
I mean,
obviously Sittler moved on. Yep.
Keon left.
Mm-hmm.
McDonald left.
Well, and when you look
Gilmore left. Clark left.
Right. Sundin was pushed out. I think Mats would have happily finished his career here.
Yeah.
But that was more of the salary cap than anything else because the cap system was
Well,
in
that's part of it.
fans
right?
were waiting to reload and move on.
But it is part of it, but it becomes part of your legacy too, right? And in the Jays case,
Did Ty Domi retire relief? I believe he did.
did he?
Yeah. And like Ty is not an all-time great player, but Ty played, what did he play, 700 games as a Maple Leaf or something? And pretty sure Ty finished his career as a Maple Leaf. That might be the last one of a guy who was here for a long, long time and was a fan favorite and retired.
Now, in the case of things like baseball and basketball, in a lot of cases, guys demand out.
Mm-hmm.
You have no choice. They want out.
Right.
And so you don't.
There's a history of that with Maple Leaf players, too, that wanted to leave and got out. Now, part of that was the Ballard era, like you mentioned, but there are some other guys who are willing to move on. But, yeah, and of the current like star players here with the Leafs, I think it'd be difficult to suggest any of them will just play their whole careers here.
I don't know. I think Marner would like to be a Leaf.
I think he might like to be.
He loves being a Leaf. He loves being a Leaf.
Sure.
Not that the other guys don't, but I mean Marner being from here loves being a Leaf.
Yeah, it just he's in his mid-20s. Probably plays another 12, 13 years. Right, it's just difficult to forecast that. I might put my money on Morgan Riley being the most likely player.
Okay, yeah.
Right, he's got. Is it an 8-year deal that kicks in this year, or maybe it kicked in last year?
This year.
Like that's. If he plays that out, then you're talking about a situation where if he wants to continue his career, who knows what that's going to look like? But that's way down the line. Like if he plays out this contract, Morgan Riley's going to hold probably every team record. Games played, points by a defenseman.
Ty did retire as a Leaf. 10 years.
Yeah, so Ty was here for 10 years, and he hit 1,000 games, and then he retired.
Yep.
So there's the last one, like of a kind of legendary Leaf who was here for a long time. Be Ty Domi. Tucker went on. He was in Colorado to finish his career. Sundin moved on. Caberlet moved on, went to Boston. McCabe moved on. Like I'm thinking of the guys in the late 90s, early 2000s. So there you go, Gord.
Cujo moved on.
Cujo moved on. Yes, he did. He regrets it. He regrets moving on, but he moved on.
You've stayed, though.
Somehow I'm still here. There's a lot of people that would prefer I left.
You're like the furniture, man. You're like when the lights go out, you'll be standing next to the switch.
Believe me, there's a lot of people that would like to see me move on.
You're the captain, man.
I am the captain of this show. I know that means nothing. It holds no weight, no necessary value to that, but it's something I wear with pride. I am the captain of this program. All right, Luke Wilson, our buddy, will join us in about a half an hour. Ezekiel Elliott is signed down in New England. Does he still have game left? We'll see what Luke has to say about that. And Nathan Rourke going viral over the weekend. What a play he made down in Jacksonville. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. Something to chew on, brought to you by Boston Pizza. This summer, whether you're in Moose Jaw or Moncton, there's a BP patio near you. Join us for a long lunch or a late night. See you for a pint on the patio soon. We're asking people, you know what happened 20 years ago today?
The blackout.
The blackout. Now, we always say the blackout in Toronto. It was not exclusive to Toronto.
Northeast, yeah.
It was the whole north, like New York was down.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's been 20 years. Like, I remember that vividly, how wild that was. And I think that should happen like once a year.
My buddy Phil called me. Said, I think I should come over and we should drink your beer before it goes bad.
It's a good suggestion.
So there was at the time I lived in the Summerhill area, Yonge and Summerhill, and there's the famous Five Thieves there. You ever heard of them? There's 5 stores in a row there. It's like a bakery, a fish market, a fruit market. They're called the Five Thieves. They charge outrageous prices. So the guy that ran the meat store was a bit of a jerk, to be honest. Like he'd go in and he'd kind of lecture you, and he wasn't very friendly. And so I just stopped going there. And then the blackout happened. I walked in. I said, bet you got steak for sale today.
What do you say about that? And not so happy.
$5 each.
I guess I got to get rid of it.
Take what you want.
Yeah.
So I went down. There's a Shell station. I bought 6 bags of ice.
So who's the thief now? Look at you stealing from
Hey, man.
The Five Thieves.
That guy had it coming. I swear that the fish market, is a bet between two guys.
Well, it's the neighborhood you're in. You're in Rosedale.
They're like, I bet you we can't charge this for shrimp and still get it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we can.
Yeah, you can. Like, you go down to Rosedale. It's crazy.
It's mask and gun.
Well, there was, I remember, because this was before social media or anything, word had spread that there was like 2 gas stations that were open in the city, and one of them was actually like Yonge and Summerhill.
Yeah, it's true.
So I remember going down there with my buddies for no reason. Like, we were just looking for something to do. We were driving around, but it was incredibly dangerous driving around because it was like, for younger people that don't remember, here I am lecturing. Like, it wasn't just a clever name. There was no electricity.
No.
It was out.
And for senior citizens.
Like, it was black.
For senior citizens and
terrifying.
It was horrendous. So
terrifying.
Yeah.
But it was one of the more wild experiences of my life, of everyone's life. Because when are you ever going to get that again? Like, it was as if it was a throwback. We were living, 2,000-3,000 BC. It was crazy. Because they had lights.
In 2000 BC.
Exactly.
Yeah, did they now?
But...
you watched too many Flintstones.
Flintstones, I do envision myself really being comfortable in that era.
That's your knowledge of
I think I'd be really comfortable in that era. Like the diet, the way people dressed, the whole thing.
The cars.
But we're asking people today with something to chew on. In honor of the 20th anniversary of the... Again, we've even labeled it on Twitter, the 2003 Toronto blackout.
Okay.
Not the Northeastern blackout. Only in Toronto did this happen. Which sports moments or events of the past 20 years do you want to black out? Now, naturally, people are writing in 11 minutes to go, May 13, 2013. That'd be perfect time to black out. Leafs up 4-1, shut the lights, and just say it's over. You're moving on. You're playing New York in the next round. That would be the clear and cut, obvious one for me from a Toronto standpoint. But, at the same time, you could look at, in recent memory, you have...
Vince missing that shot.
Vince missing that. Now, that would have been in 99, I believe. Although maybe that was 2000. Yeah, I guess so. Vince,
it's got to be since
2001. There you go. So it was in 01. So that's perfect. Vincent, how about blackout the fact that Vince went to his graduation that day?
College graduation in the morning.
Maybe he hits the shot if he's sleeping during the day, as opposed to, flying down to North Carolina. So, yeah, Vince in 01 missing the shot.
Maybe the Tuukka Rask trade. Maybe pull the plug on the phone network.
I think a blackout just as that deal was going through.
So the phone network goes out.
Yeah, sorry, you said Justin Pogge, right? Because remember, that's the understanding was the Leafs basically said, hey, Peter Chiarelli, your boy.
Again with this, Peter Chiarelli's my guy.
Pick who you want. You can have Tuukka Rask or Justin Pogge. We're happy with both guys. And naturally, the Bruins took, in Bill and Ted's, they took Keanu Reeves, and the Leafs were stuck with the other guy.
You made a point the other day off the air that I'm going to bring up on the air.
Okay, go ahead.
About the 2003 NHL draft.
Yes.
Which is, one of the greatest drafts of all time. That's Marc-Andre Fleury, Stahl, Getzlaf, Perry,
Dion Phaneuf, Ryan Suter.
Yeah.
Mike Richards.
Yeah. Maybe the Leafs could have had a blackout that year. Maybe they
did have a blackout. See,
maybe they did.
The opposite of this is find some lights in electricity for the Leafs in the 03 draft. So sickening what happened back then.
No first round pick.
Yes.
Second round, John Doherty.
Good pick.
No games played.
Awful.
Third round pick, Martin Saget.
Nope.
Never played. Fourth round, Konstantin Volkov.
Nope.
Never played. Fifth round, John Mitchell.
Hey, there you go, Johnny Mitch.
548 games.
Good little player.
No sixth round pick. Seventh round pick, Jeremy Williams.
He played. He actually took O out of the lineup to end O's career.
Yeah.
O retired a Leaf.
He did. And then eighth round pick, Sean Landel.
Awful. So think about that.
So
the greatest draft possibly in NHL history. Everyone was getting Hall of Famers. Some teams were getting multiple. Anaheim took Ryan Getzlaf and Corey Perry. Philly took Jeff Carter and Mike Richards in the same draft.
Yes.
And the Leafs got John Mitchell at some point.
Yeah.
And that explains why they were what they were for so long. That draft in a nutshell. Blackout. Actually, forget that. Electricity. Turn the lights on. Get back to the draft table in 2003. And someone put a flashlight on the Leafs.
We used to joke
because they were asleep.
We used to joke that if you took away Mike Milbury's phone at the trade deadline, the Islanders might have won a Stanley Cup.
When you consider what they traded, what they just got rid of.
Roberto Luongo.
Well, exactly. For Rick DiPietro. They already had Luongo, and they decided, we'd rather Rick DiPietro. So we're going to take Rick, and we'll just flip Luongo. We're just going to get rid of you. I don't even know what they got in return. They must have got something.
Was that Oleg Kavasha? Was he part of that deal?
I don't recall. But even the Yashin deal, that was, I believe, Zdeno Chara, the rights to Chara, and what turned out to be the second overall pick in Jason Spezza. Chara and Spezza for Yashin. They had Rafi Torres, got rid of him. They had Brian McCabe, got rid of him.
It was Oleg Kavasha. So he went to the Islanders. Sorry, Ole Jokinen to Florida with Roberto Luongo for Mark Parrish and Oleg Kavasha.
Wait a minute. They added on top of Luongo?
Yeah,
Ole Jokinen?
Yeah, Jokinen Luongo.
Jokinen straight up.
Yeah.
Would have been a reasonable deal, let alone throwing in.
Only played 1,200 games.
Yeah. Pretty good player.
Oleg Kavasha, his engine didn't run very high.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that can be concerning. Well, I'm sure Milbury had the notes on that. He thought he could change him. Mike would have been on top of that. Yeah, that 03 draft, man. That Leafs, so Leafs in 03 draft is all you needed to know about everything that they did.
So that's a blackout.
That's a blackout. That is the definition of a blackout. Everyone was walking away with Hall of Famers. Bergeron in the second round. Weber in the second round. We talked about it last week. Joe Pavelski in the sixth round, I believe it was. Bufflin in the sixth round. Oh, Pavelski was in the seventh round.
I think so, yeah.
It was stock full of all-time great players.
Yeah, Pavelski was a seventh-round pick.
And the Leafs blacked out.
Brent Seabrook, Louis Eriksson, Thomas Vanek.
Yeah, Nathan
Ryan
Horton.
Kessler.
Yeah, Thomas Vanek, like you said, a good player.
David Backes.
Backes, good player. Yeah, outrageous.
How about that? I mean, there's like 50 guys played 400 games out of that draft.
Yeah, it was a great draft. Great draft. Joshua tweeting in saying, seeing Kobe put up 81 against the Raptors comes to mind. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think I look back on history differently now, because Kobe has passed away, and now I think people say they were there now. I remember watching that game, and because it was it would have been a 10 p.m. tip-off, 10:30 tip-off, and I remember watching it, and it went from a combination of frustration. I've talked to Sam Mitchell about this a million times because Raptor fans were watching and said, "What are you doing? Stop this guy! He's killing you. He's embarrassing you."
Right.
And then it flipped to this kind of viewing experience where you're just in awe. You're like, I can't believe this guy. It's crazy. It happens to be against the Raptors, and now it's going to be a part of history because he knew it. This guy was hitting shots from everywhere, man. They were double teaming, triple teaming. It didn't matter. Kobe was putting it up. It was going in. But in the moment, it was really embarrassing. And it was a time where they weren't very good. It was within a couple years of Vince and the debacle of Vince.
All that, yeah.
And then Kobe drops 81.
Which has been papered over.
Mm-hmm.
The end of Vince.
Yeah, it's revisionist history. Now, for whatever reason, there are authors that have decided they want to change history and they want to prop Vince up. And I think it's been softened because of the championship in 19. I don't dispute that. From my own perspective, it's bygones are bygones. Before the championship in 19 was a totally different era. And then beyond it, Raptor fans can breathe. Right? That's going to happen with the Leafs at some point. I don't know when that's going to happen. But Leaf fans are uptight. Leaf fans are on edge because Leaf fans are getting poked all the time. And, a lot of it's self-inflicted, let's be honest, in terms of sometimes the reactions and the way that, this team is propped up and talked about it, et cetera. But if and when the Leafs were to win a Stanley Cup, I think it would be a very different fan base immediately. I think the next day there'd be a collective sigh of relief, all right, it's over. It would be a celebration, but it would also be just, I think Leaf fans would just be relieved.
It expunges all the...
It's gone.
It gets rid of Ballard.
It's out.
All the
out.
Teachers and the...
Yeah, it's gone. Everything that happened, everything that's been behind them. The 03 draft. 03 draft, all of a sudden, John Mitchell, retire his number. Great pick.
What's your blackout moments? Which one did you pick?
Well, I would say Game 7 and 13, for sure. I think there have been Blue Jay moments. You look at that 15 team, and I think it's in the air right now because of Bautista's level of excellence. We just had Gibbons on, and they were in that series against Kansas City, and they couldn't. I don't recall a moment in particular where I'd say that was it, but there was a day or two there that you'd like to black out and try to redo if you could. You got one, Grappler? What do you have for us?
I can't remember the guy's name, but do you remember that home run ball that was caught by the guy with the massive beard?
Yes.
And so
the looking guy?
Yeah, I'd say that could be one that we moment we care to black out.
That one hurt because the guy, I think he was reaching over the wall too. That should have been fan interference. And he became kind of the face of Kansas City and them going on to win a World Series, and the Jays were on the wrong side of it. But there's probably a number of moments you could point to. Let's be honest, Gord. Yeah, someone tweeting in, Leafs versus the Zamboni driver. Yeah. I could probably use, my life not knowing who David Ayers is. I could probably go about my business without that information. But that one hurt. That one hurt if you're a Leaf fan.
Not really a reflection of that.
It was pretty embarrassing, Gord. Easily the most embarrassing regular season moment in franchise history. Without question. There's nothing that's even close. Nothing that's even close. Roger Nielsen with a bag over his head.
I think Roger Nielsen with a bag over his head.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not. He's not playing. There was a guy who would be on the Zamboni at the Ford Performance Center who came in the game, Gord, and not for a minute in a blowout. A long time. He was in that for legitimate parts of the second and the full third period, and the Leafs lost in reg. That's not even a blackout, dude. You need drugs for that one. There's something beyond just a blackout to get rid of that. But again, if and when they win a cup, gone. The ghost of the Zamboni driver.
I'll tell you the quick blackout. So
out of here.
My now ex-wife used to give the gears all the time. Never wanted the gas below half a tank.
Mm-hmm.
So she was driving back from Montreal. She had half a tank left. She filled up, and she just got home. And I got the "I told you so."
The blackout
about the half tank.
Yeah.
Never be below half a tank of gas.
See, I can't live like that, man. You got to live. You got to live on the edge.
I'm right down to the flashing red light.
Yeah. Now you're really down to the flash. Yeah. Now you're like, I'll show you. All right. Luke Wilson coming up in about 20 minutes. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right. Luke Wilson will join us in about 15 minutes. Nathan Rourke. Man, what a play that was over the weekend.
Unreal, huh?
For him to elude, he had at least three guys chasing him down, broken coverage, and for him to escape and not only throw it away, he said, I'm not throwing this away. I'm going to make a play. He throws a touchdown. One of the great plays I've probably ever seen. It was incredible.
Well, and to do it against the Cowboys.
Yep.
Right? But, also in the preseason, right, you're trying to make a play to be noticed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in a regular season NFL game, you probably don't do that. You probably eat it.
You think you'd take the sack?
You eat it. You don't. Maybe he would, but
I don't know. Maybe he's got some Doug Flutie in him. That's what it looked like.
Yeah,
that's a Flutie type of move.
I think any preseason game, you're just trying to make a mental impression.
Mm-hmm. That's going to go a long way.
That goes a long way.
Yeah. His stats in BC were phenomenal.
Yeah.
And he was a really good college quarterback, and he's well aware of what he's dealing with. That's Trevor Lawrence's team. But in the NFL, anything can happen at any time.
That's the thing, right?
Right.
You are a snap away from. So you want to position yourself to be the number 2 guy.
Yeah. And then maybe get an opportunity. Look at Brock Purdy. Came out of nowhere. And now it's his job.
Well, do you remember when Drew Bledsoe got hurt?
Mm-hmm.
And the Patriots had to put their backup in, and Vegas took them off the board.
Thinking this is going to be a disaster.
It was this Tom Brady bunch.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and even when Bledsoe returned from injury, there was still debate over who was going to start.
Right.
And obviously they made the right choice. And I think internally they knew it was pretty obvious that it was Brady that was going to continue to be the guy. But Bledsoe was a great, great player.
He was.
first overall pick, and he was great in New England, and they had invested heavily in him. And I'm sure when he first went down, the thought was, well, clearly, whenever he comes back, he'll be the guy.
But now,
And the rest was history with Tom Brady.
Opportunity, right? That's all. All you can ask for. When I hear that in September and October, meaningless NHL preseason games,
never.
Not for the guys, especially if you're trying to.
Exactly.
You're trying to put something in Sheldon Keefe's head. You're trying to just have him remember you. If you don't make the team, be an option.
Yes, exactly. Or have a scout in the stands write your name down and say, I like that guy. Because that's it. Like, Rourke may not be the guy for the Jags in the future, but he could be
somebody's
guy for someone else. Exactly. Final hour coming up. Luke Wilson will join us. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.